Hey everyone, still trying to get a new camera for the movie report, but I actually wanted to take the time to talk about James Cameron's new installment in the Avatar saga, Avatar Fire and Ash. Now, I had a lot of high expectations when I went into this movie, as I am a huge fan of the first movie and an even bigger fan of the second movie. I've always been fascinated by these worlds and by these characters like Jake, Neytiri, Loak, Moat, and, Kiri and everyone else. Now, The Way of Water ended with Neytiri and Jake's oldest son, Neteyam, dying at the hands of the RDA. And this film follows the fallout from that said death. Now, let's get this out of the way. Is Fire and Ash good? Yeah, it is. It's really, really good. And thankfully, I went into this film with the expectation that this was more like a part two of two than a direct sequel to The Way of Water. And if you go into this movie viewing it that way, it makes it a lot easier to digest because it just picks up right where that movie left off and it deals with the same themes and ideas from that movie. And people online have been complaining that this feels too much like The Way of Water, and that's because it is. This was originally part of the same script as The Way of Water, but James and his team just didn't know how to, condense it, so they just split it in half, and this is basically a direct continuation of The Way of Water. Now, knowing that, how is the actual movie played out? Well, we follow many different storylines. There are, I think, at least 5 main plots and characters that we follow, or, that we observe. We have Jake and Neytiri's storyline. We have Spider and Kiri's storyline. Loak and Sirera's storyline. We have then, Quarch and Varang's. And then on top of that, we have, minor subplots with Edie Falco's character. There's a lot. This movie is densely packed. So there is so much going on just within those 3 hours alone. And yeah, I will admit, this movie is 3 hours, but it is paced so well, it feels like it goes by in 2. But that doesn't necessarily work in the movie's favor. You see, despite the fact that there's a lot going on, and despite that it's well paced, it doesn't sometimes make for the best viewing experience because, unfortunately, there are moments where you can clearly tell something that was supposed to pay off for these characters, whether that they're major or minor, they're just removed from the movie in its entirety. Several supporting characters literally just disappear. They're gone. And it makes for a slightly jarring experience, especially towards the end. The final act of this movie, while phenomenal, if not slightly familiar, after the final battle, the movie just ends like 2 minutes later. And it goes by way too quickly, to the point where something happens. And for those of you that have seen the movie, you understand exactly what I'm talking about. There is something that happens towards the end of the final battle that you don't actually see the repercussions for. And on top of that, despite the fact that James Cameron has kind of said that if this movie doesn't perform well, it can easily be the cap off to the Avatar universe, that's kind of bullshit because there are several threads that are left completely unresolved to the point where you simply need to know more because these characters who have played major stakes in this just disappear, like clearly meant for the sequel that's supposed to be coming out in 4 years. So it leads for a slightly frustrating viewing. But I am getting way too ahead of myself on the negatives because those really are the only negatives here. The positives far outweigh it. For example, this is a beautiful spectacle of a movie. The VFX are groundbreaking. The action is completely outstanding. The music swells and is filled to the brim with, emotion. And on top of that, speaking of emotion, this is probably the most character-focused and character-driven Avatar movie that we've gotten to date. This explores anger, grief, and every single thing and banner under that 5-stage umbrella. And every character gets a moment to shine. Loak, Kiri, Spider, Neytiri, Took, Jake, everyone gets a chance to explore their grief in their own unique way. And setups in Way of Water actually get satisfying payoffs here. And I really enjoyed everyone's performance. Sigourney Weaver as Kiri is definitely more digestible this time around, despite the fact it is clearly a mid-70-year-old woman playing a 14-year-old girl. But thankfully, Sigourney Weaver is a phenomenal actress, so if you really look past the voice, she just delivers a truly phenomenal performance. Jake Champion as Spider is, I think, the biggest standout of this movie. I lie. Second biggest standout. We'll get to the biggest standout momentarily. But Stephen Lang as Quaritch is also just a force of nature. He is so damn fun to watch play out. And Sam Worthington as Jake Sully, I think really finally nails and understands the character. This is definitely the best that we've seen from him, not only as an actor, but him as Jake Sully as well. And Zoe Saldana as Neytiri, despite the fact she didn't have a lot to do in the first didn't have a lot to do in Way of Water, this is her movie. She has everything to show in this movie in particular. And there are several really uncomfortable, in a good way, moments that she has in this movie where we see her grief and her anger really consume her in a way that is deeply believable, but also deeply upsetting. Because there are questions that I have had as an Avatar fan since 2010, when I watched the extended edition and saw that deleted scene where it was revealed that Neytiri was pregnant. I kept asking myself this certain question, which I won't get into because I want you to go in, completely fresh. But they answer a question that I and the fandom have had since then, and it is a deeply, deeply upsetting result because it's a complex answer where you can hate her or love her for it. But the real standout of this movie is Una Chaplin's Varang from the Mokwan people, or the Ash people. She plays such a diva'd up, sexual, and violent villain that is so deeply entertaining to watch. And a lot of where you see this movie's praises and criticisms come from her character. She is completely out there. She's chewing up the screen. But this is also where James Cameron finally can let loose and be that freaky little fuck that I'm sure he's wanted to be for like the last 30 years. They do so much freaky shit with her character to the point where, I felt like I had to clutch my pearls and be like, oh my, she is a truly phenomenal villain. It's not that deep, and I don't think she needs to be. I think with her, it's just she needs to be evil for the sake of being evil, and I'm actually okay with that. I am more than okay with her being evil for the sake of being evil. And I hope that there is more that is done with her character in the future. Now, I will admit the first two acts of this movie are stronger than the third. The third act feels, I'll admit, it does feel a lot like a retread of a couple elements of the first two Avatar movies. And for better or for worse, it works. But like I said, the third act is definitely the messiest of the three, because it very much feels like this was probably a 3.5-hour movie that was cut down to just shy of 3 hours. So there's many, many moments where it's like, oh, that character had that one moment, and then they're gone for like the rest of the movie until the very end where they come back for the ending. And it does leave for a mildly frustrating experience because you're sitting here and you're wondering like, okay, you got your moment to shine, but like you're just gone. It's very much reminiscent of seeing War Machine in Endgame, where he gets this big build-up and new suit, and then you see him in like one action scene in the background, and he's just gone for the rest of the battle. It's frustrating to say the least. But I am hoping James Cameron releases an extended edition similar to what he did with the first Avatar, because I just know there's stuff that was left on the cutting room floor that just needs to get put back into this to make it feel more like a whole satisfying experience, which this movie is very satisfying. For me as an Avatar fan, I definitely felt satisfied watching this movie. There were many payoffs to things that I personally wanted, and on top of that, if I can be a little crass for a moment, there are 2 separate occasions where we get Na'vi boobs again. So if you're a dude who wants to see Na'vi boobs, congratulations, you get Na'vi boobs. There's your incentive to go pay like $20 for this movie. And overall, putting that crassness aside, I would, as a fan, this gave me almost everything I wanted. I'd give it like a 9.5 or a 10. As a fan, obviously, because I'm a sucker for these movies. I'm a sucker for James Cameron. I'm a sucker for this world. I'm probably going to see this movie 4 more times. And I will admit, even with the high frame rate, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but the 3D was phenomenal. It was as immersive as it ever was, and I never even got a headache the entire time I watched it. Weirdly enough, I got a headache with Way of Water, but I didn't get a headache here. And I think that is a benefit because you are wearing glasses for 3 hours. So, you know, props to James Cameron and his team for ensuring a solid movie viewing experience. And I do want this movie to succeed. I know right now with how things are in the world and how uncertainty is filling up with movies now, where even big franchises like Avatar have the capability of failing because simply people cannot afford to go see movies as much as they used to. But if there is a movie that I think deserves your money and deserves your time, it is definitely Avatar. Because my objective score for this movie is an 8 out of 10. Like I said, as a fan, I am definitely going to be rewatching this. But objectively speaking, this is an 8. There are many scenes that feel like they were left out of the cutting room. I'm sorry, they were left on the cutting room floor. And on top of that, this movie's third act feels way too familiar at times, to the point where you can predict exactly what moments are going to happen. They build up to it in the same way as the first movie, and I don't know if that was by deliberation or by accident. But this movie does one thing it is set out to do, which is deliver a good old-fashioned blockbuster spectacle with very, not well written, but very well likable characters that you want to see win. It's just a good old Hollywood movie that delivers on its spectacle and delivers on a really good story with very solid character moments and character beats. I highly recommend it. Despite its flaws and faults, I think this is a phenomenal movie-going experience that you really can't find anywhere else in the world, especially anywhere in theaters or even streaming. Nobody does it like James Cameron, and this movie is no exception to that rule. Always bet on Cameron. There's really there's nothing else more that I can say about it. Go see this movie. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments section below. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next review. Thank you.